All right, so for today's video, I kind of wanted to talk about. Usually, I don't talk about current events, but I wanted to talk about the LA fires and stuff like that, right? Because first of all, just off rip, I see history repeating itself, right? Because if you look at like the World Fairs, if you look at like the mud floods, like the Tartarian mud floods and like the Great Fires that happened in history, not today, but like historically, this is another I believe that this is an element of this matrix, that what they do is they erase progress and then they start from another like initial point, right? It's almost like what they do is they try to because we're living in like a time loop, right? Like this is a in this reincarnation trap, in this soul trap, it is a time loop. Okay, so they have to erase history at a certain point in order to restart it, right? And you look at like how people talk about how the technology of the ancients was much more advanced than people say, right? You have references to nuclear bombs and vimanas, which is what the Hindus talk about in their texts, which are like these flying giant flying machines that made no noise. And so it's very obvious that our history is very much manipulated, but also you have what they will do is that they will go through these cycles where after a certain point of advancement they will erase all the progress, and and they will start from a certain point that, from the beginning, and then they'll start the simulation again. And you can see, and you can this is like a whole field of like research that you can do with this, where you can research like the world fairs, you can research like the mental asylums, the orphan trains, stuff like that, where you see basically like all the cities burning down, or at the great fires. And then you have parents being taken away from their children and put into mental asylums, because what they want to do is they want to create a version of history. And so what they do is they take away the parents, and then they teach the kids a version of history that's not true, right? They put the orphans on the orphan trains, and they put the parents in the mental asylums, and they look out of the asylum and they see train cars being pulled by horses, like, oh, those used to run on their own power, man. Like, no, 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 like, you're crazy, that's why you're in the asylum, right? And but the reason why I'm talking about like the LA fires is because if you think about like Maui and LA and all that stuff, right? Obviously, like, these fires are like, obviously there's like, they're caused by like arsonists, right? It's deliberate, right? But also another pattern that I mean, but also like they have directed energy weapons as well. And one of the things that I'm getting a feeling about is that maybe what they're trying to do is I mean, obviously, like, they're trying to burn down the cities in order to create 15-minute cities. But also, I feel like history is they're going to try to erase history. They're going to try to erase history in order to repeat itself, right? If you think about Project Bluebeam, which is like the ultimate sort of end game, and if you don't know what Project Bluebeam is, it's basically like a secret project to fake an alien invasion, to fake a threat from outer space using holograms, right? Using satellites projecting holograms into the sky, and in order to consolidate government power centrally, right? And they're going to try to create a one world religion. They're going to try to create a one world new age religion where people worship the Antichrist and all that stuff. But like, the reason why I'm talking about like the LA fires and stuff like that is because I can see that, like, yet again, like the great fires of all these different cities, where they erased history, they reset history, they put the parents in the asylums, they put the orphans on orphan trains, they have the world fairs where they basically told people a version of history that wasn't true for the next generation, right? And then you have like these big buildings that they destroyed and they tore down, trying to erase history, like all the church bells that had harmonizing frequencies, healing frequencies that were destroyed, like all the church bells that were destroyed and all that stuff by men with hats and black suits, weirdly enough. Um, but I'm just seeing that like all of this sort of organized destruction. I think about like what happened with Florida, with like the hurricanes and stuff like that. I mean, obviously that's like weather control, right? Because, like, believe it or not, like, you can call me crazy, but the government does have the ability to control the weather. I mean, you look at like they harped, like if you know like the HARP project, right? That they have where they're controlling the ionosphere, there's like the chemtrails and everything else. But basically, you look at like the quote unquote natural disaster happening in Florida. You look at the directed energy weapon created fires in Maui, right? You look at Chile. You look at and now in California, right? What's going on? I believe that is that they're having this, or they're sort of ramping up that organized destruction of what is in order to replace it with 15-minute cities. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to erase the history, right? They're trying to reset history. They're trying to reset. I feel like we're working up towards a reset of the simulation in a way, and because we're working up towards a reset, I think they're ramping up the destruction of sort of the old world, so to speak. They're ramping up the destruction of the old world so they can create the new world order, right? Notice that? I think that wordplay was good, but yeah, I mean, I just really wanted to make a video about that. How like that this simulation does repeat, it does reset history and repeat itself because we are in a time loop, and I just wanted to sort of point out that pattern. This is a shorter video than I expected it was going to be, but I just wanted to point out that pattern of like of this organized destruction that we're seeing today, of think about Florida, Maui, Chile, think about, I believe it's Spain that had all the floods and everything else. Look at Brazil. Okay, Brazil, like they had like this was like a long time ago, but they had like a bunch of floods and everything after like doing like demonic stuff at Carnival, right? So I mean that might be a different thing where they let demons into the country, but I mean a lot of that's like HARP and everything else, right? But I say all that to say that all of that organized destruction of like, oh, there's a fire that happened in this city and there's a fire that happened in that city and there's a big hurricane, that organized destruction of the old world, so to speak, has happened before, right? And so if there's one thing you take away from this video, research the world fairs, research the mental asylums, research the orphan trains. Like all the trains, the locomotives that had like orphans loaded up onto them. Like why were there so many orphans? Why did so many people go into mental asylums? Why were there these great, like these beautiful buildings, these grand works of architecture that were just like that they put them up for the fair and then they tore them down in like a matter of like weeks or months, which doesn't make any sense, right? You're like, research the Tartarian mud floods, and you will see that history is repeating itself with all these fires and all this organized destruction that we're seeing today. And I just sort of prepare mentally, spiritually, because I do believe that they're trying to go towards this sort of reset of the simulation, or and to sort of create the new world order where like there's, and ultimately it's about like putting chips into people's brains, like the 15-minute cities. Like you're not allowed to question the historical narrative. There might not even be a history. It might just be like, oh, okay, before it's like because of Project Bluebeam, it's like, oh, okay, that's the event and that's when history starts from the next iteration of the simulation. Is, oh, okay, there was an alien invasion and then the government banded together, and now they're like everything about the old world is gone. And you know what it reminds me of? Is it reminds me of if you've ever read The Giver by Lois Lowry, right? Where these people live in the sort of 15-minute city and they get injections every day where it nullifies their emotions. Emotions are made illegal, right, by these people, and everything, all the memories of the human race, all of the memories of like the wars and like the previous histories and everything else is gone. Like nobody remembers what happened before that 15-minute city. Like if you haven't read the book or watched the movie, watch the movie, read the book, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Is that I believe that this is what they're trying to do, is they're trying to reset the simulation for the next iteration, which is going to be like the whole AI controlled, brain chipped, Project Bluebeam, like a fake threat from outer space, new world order religion, new world order, government, right? And another thing that it reminds me of is it reminds me of Deus Ex, like the video game, right, where they have like UNATCO and everything else. Just like a unified world government. And I think this is obviously that's what they've been working toward, but I can see that organized destruction of the cities is primarily what I'm talking about in this video. That is that's a history repeating itself for another next iteration of this time loop. where they're going to erase the previous history. They're going to erase the previous, the memory of our history to support this next technologically controlled, AI controlled, brain chip controlled iteration of the simulation where everything's a one world government and there's all these 15-minute cities and it's just like a dystopian hellscape, right? But yeah, I just wanted to point out that history repeating itself and that the the cities being destroyed is not an accident. It's an organized effort by the system that I believe is trying to erase. To I believe that we're working towards a reset of this simulation, and so I just wanted to point out that pattern. But that's the video.